First of all, I would like to thank you all for your time and this opportunity you've given me to speak with you. The issue I've come to discuss today is fake news. I would like to talk about what it is and how it is hurting the news industry. So, first, what is fake news? According to the New York Times, fake news means a made up article with an intention to deceive. Many different news companies have been guilty of false reporting. Why does fake news happen? Fake news cannot be attributed simply to human error or chance. In fact, there are numerous psychological theories that help explain why things like fake news happen. So, this is the psychology behind it. The first theory is known as the overconfidence phenomenon. According to David Meyer's Exploring Social Psychology textbook, this is defined as the tendency to be more confident than correct, to overestimate the accuracy of one's beliefs. The media uses this to portray everything they report as fact, whether it is or not. You almost never hear a journalist say, "Now, this story here may or may not be true, but we are reporting it anyway." Journalists should be confident in what they are saying, but that is why news agencies need to be sure it is 100% true before reporting. It can be easy for the media to abuse their power and deceive people with dishonesty. You cannot take advantage of people's trust, or eventually it can be lost. The second psychological theory behind fake news is confirmation bias. Myers defines this as a tendency to search for information that confirms one's preconceptions. There's nothing wrong with media bias. It is an integral part to good journalism, but in certain cases, people have been guilty of seizing on a story too quickly that appealed to their views and they rush to support it without all the facts. In other cases, only part of a story is reported to favor certain views. Leaving words out or details of a story out for the sake of appealing to a certain viewpoint is confirmation bias. This is simply not reporting the whole story or the whole truth, and it is very deceptive. Now I'd like to give you some examples of fake news. On April 20th, 2017, Jason Stallman, a New York Times sports editor, posted side-by-side photos of the New England Patriots' visit to the White House in 2015 and this year in 2017. He did this to suggest a massively smaller crowd in attendance this year to make something this insignificant a President Obama versus President Trump issue. Immediately, the Patriots responded and condemned the post, saying it did not give context and explained that the staff were in a different location this year. They were on the south lawn as opposed to being on the stairs as they were in 2015. They later specified that there were only 2 less people present this year. As a result, the editor from the New York Times had to issue this statement: "Bad tweet by me, terrible tweet. I wish I could say it's complicated, but no, this one is pretty straightforward. I'm an idiot. It was my idea, it was my execution, it was my blunder. I made a decision in about 4 minutes that clearly warranted much more time. Once we learned more, we tried to fix everything as much as possible, as swiftly as possible, and as transparently as possible. Of course, at that point, the damage was done. I just needed to own it." This highlights two major issues in the process of reporting news. First, the fact that one man was allowed to make this decision by himself with no system to check the content for validity and accuracy. Secondly, this decision was made in about 4 minutes, according to him. This is what I mentioned about hastily jumping on a story. He saw this picture and saw the opportunity for a potential story, and without checking the content for validity, he immediately jumped on it and posted it anyway. Another example of fake news, this time NBC was the guilty party. They were called out for fake news reporting on George Zimmerman, in which they tried to make it appear he racially profiled Trayvon Martin. They edited the audio of a 911 call. Here is what they broadcast. In their broadcast, they said that Zimmerman said, "This guy looks like he's up to no good. He looks black." Here is the actual conversation. It begins with Zimmerman saying, "This guy looks like he's up to no good, or he's on drugs or something. It's raining, and he's just walking around looking about." Then a dispatcher responds and says, "Okay, and this guy, is he black, white, or Hispanic?" Zimmerman: "He looks black." After the fraudulent editing was discovered, NBC News issued a full retraction and fired a number of the producers involved. This was just complete dishonest media. Another example of fake news, this year, on January 20th, CNN had an incident of their own with Nancy Sinatra, the eldest daughter of famous singer Frank Sinatra. They headlined an article on their website, "Nancy Sinatra Not Happy Trump Using Father's Song at Inauguration." Soon after, Nancy Sinatra responded by saying, "That's not true. I never said that. Why do you lie, CNN?" CNN put words in her mouth and made a false report on the issue. Another example of fake news. Dan Rather scandal in 2004. The long-standing anchor at CBS News made headlines for a report that questioned and criticized the National Guard service of George W. Bush. The documents they used as evidence came from Bill Burkett, and they made the report because he told them they were true. They took the advice of one man saying they were true without checking the documents to see if they were actually valid. After the fact, the supposed source could not be verified, and after an independent investigation, they were led to believe that the documents were not valid and possibly forged. This scandal began the demise of Dan Rather, and soon after, he stepped down after many years at CBS News. I would also like to mention that fake news is not a partisan issue. Here are two quotes from the most recent presidential candidates, excuse me. First, Hillary Clinton said, "It is now clear that so-called fake news can have real-world consequences. This is not about politics or partisanship. Lives are at risk, lives of ordinary people just trying to go about their days and do their jobs, contribute to their communities. It is a danger that must be addressed and addressed quickly. It is imperative that leaders in both the private and public sector step up to protect our democracy and innocent lives." Donald Trump has also openly and repeatedly condemned reports of fake news and has specifically targeted CNN many times. So this just shows that on both sides of the aisle, people have been affected by fake news and they both want it to stop. So why is it a problem? The way a story is told or incorrectly told can have grave consequences, as many people can react violently with riot and or mobs to certain news reports. We've seen this within recent years when certain news reports have been made. People have rioted throughout cities, people have been killed, so we must be careful that what is being reported is actually true. For this reason, it is the duty of these executives and journalists to realize the importance of accurately reporting information. False reports can damage lives and hurt reputations. As I just talked about briefly, not only can it damage the lives of those who report it, as Dan Rather and others have been removed from their positions as a result of fake news, but allegations and accusations upon other people can also be damning and hurt their lives. The American people want to be able to look to the news to learn and be able to trust what they are being told is true. So you might be wondering, why does this matter to you? Do the executives of CNN, Fox News, NBC, ABC, the New York Times, and the Washington Post, you are my stakeholders in this project to improve the media's reputation. You are the key to solving this fake news epidemic. Fake news is bringing about distrust of the media. As of September 14, 2016, Gallup reported that Americans who trusted the media hit an all-time low of 32%. People want to be able to look to the news companies for fair, honest, and reliable news coverage. If this distrust continues to drop, so could the viewership. Now, I would like to tell you my solution to this problem. After reviewing different solutions to this troubling problem, the best option is to begin an institutional news board. This would work similarly to the Institutional Review Board that was developed to review and approve all research involving human subjects to ensure that it is conducted in accordance with all federal, institutional, and ethical guidelines. So in the same way, this Institutional News Board, what it would do is it would take in all the breaking stories first, go through their database to vet and approve these stories as true before sending them out to all the news companies. Of course, more than just breaking news stories are being reported. So for this, many of you have your own review board systems. However, I would encourage you to hand over your review system to the Institutional News Board. Before publishing stories, they will review and fact check them for you through their database. They'll give you a comprehensive report of any potential mistakes, and it'll be up to you to decide whether or not to correct them or go ahead and publish the story anyway. This is not meant to prevent free speech, and it will not prevent free speech. Everyone will be entitled to spinning the Institutional News Board stories and applying bias as they wish, but while keeping the facts. This review board will work as a system of checks and balances for the news companies. They'll work for you to help you in accurately reporting the news in order to prevent this issue of fake news from occurring so often. No one will be forced to use the Institutional News Board, however, it would behoove you to do so. The goal of this board is to help news agencies, not hurt them. We want to regain the trust of the American people. Having your stories backed by the Institutional News Board will prove your validity and legitimacy. People would not have to wonder whether or not what they were reading and hearing is true. As it stands, the media and news outlets are falling out of favor with the American people. They want honest, trustworthy news. Americans are watching the news less and less. As the executives of prominent news companies, I'm sure you understand that this is not good. To prevent the growing distrust of the media and the loss of viewership, the Institutional News Board is the answer. Now, I understand there are potential issues with my proposed solution. The biggest issue with this plan is getting you to comply with this new system. I realize it is not easy to completely change the dynamic of how news is reported. I understand it would be difficult to implement this directly into your company and it would work seamlessly and flawlessly. However, if you are willing to join up with the Institutional News Board now, it may benefit you tremendously. As more companies get on board, those without the Institutional News Board stamp of approval on their stories will have a much harder time being heard and believed. Starting out, the Institutional Review Board will have to earn the trust of the people. Your company will be respected and you can help begin the process of regaining Americans' trust. I need your help. It would be your duty to comply with the standards and requirements of the Institutional News Board and to enforce these new policies with your journalists and reporters. There should be more measures put in place to help deliver the truth to the American people and to get it right the first time. You all have great spheres of influence that should be used for good to spread the news, the truth, to all who want to listen. If you will comply, it would be a win for the American people. They could again have the media that they could trust and rely on. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to working with you in the future.